Hi, my name is
Hey.
Francine Blythe, and I'm the Executive Director of Vision Maker Media, located in Lincoln, Nebraska, USA. My background is Dene from my mother, Dakota Band Sioux from my father, and also Eastern Band Cherokee from my father. Welcome to Vision Maker Media's first online Indigenous Film Festival. Vision Maker Media is a Native nonprofit located in Lincoln, Nebraska, in the United States. Vision Maker Media's mission is to empower and engage Native people to share stories. Vision Maker envisions a world changed and healed by understanding Native stories and the public conversations they generate. Reaching the general public and the global market is the ultimate goal for the dissemination of Native-produced media that shares Native perspectives with the world. Vision Maker Media continues to showcase the most compelling Native stories in public broadcasting on local US PBS stations and online. Major festival sponsors for this online festival include the Lincoln Journal-Star, Woodland Voices Flutes, Lex Center for the Arts, Native American Calling, National Native News, Indigify, NV1, FNX, First Nations Experience, NET, Nebraska's PBS and NPR stations, Woods Charitable Fund, Humanities Nebraska, the Lincoln Community Foundation, Lincoln Arts Council, the National Endowment for the Humanities, the Cooper Foundation, the Reese Foundation, the Cherokee Nation Film Office, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. So today, right now, I will be moderating the QA for Sisters Rising with 5 of the filmmakers, or 4 filmmakers and 1 actor in the film. And I'd like to welcome everybody and start with just a little introduction for everybody that I've been provided. So if I can start with Willow, would you please just wave so people will know who you are? Willow is a director, producer, cinematographer. She's the award-winning director, producer, and cinematographer of 2 feature documentary films. 1, Break the Silence, Reproductive and Sexual Health Stories, and Sisters Rising, the one you just saw. Break the Silence won the 2019 Best Documentary Feature Award at La Frontera Queer Film Festival. She was a fledgling fellow at the 2018 DX Investigative Film Festival in Washington, D.C. She is a member of New Day Films and is a co-founder of Haptic Pictures, a production company producing content around pressing issues of social justice. Also is director, producer, cinematographer Brad Heck. Raise your hand and wave. Rising Sisters is Brad's directorial debut. He also co-produced Willow's feature documentary, Break the Silence, and is a co-founder of Haptic Pictures production company. In his career, Brad has worked as a cinematographer on commercial and independent projects featuring diverse visionaries such as Barack Obama, Howard Zinn, and Miranda July. He was awarded a regional Emmy for his cinematography for Brick Media in New York. Brad currently teaches film and video studies at Marlborough College. Most recently, Brad was awarded a Community Engagement Lab grant to develop a virtual reality project chronicling the impact of climate change in Vermont. And we have Miss Canton Cardinal. If you could please raise your hand for everyone. She is the executive producer, is a Cree Métis actor, writer, and activist, and quite a prolific Indigenous actress of her time. She has broken barriers for Native representation, combining her prestigious talent and presence with a fierce commitment to honoring Indigenous people. Cantu is best known for her roles in Falls Around Her, Legends of the Fall, Dances with Wolves, Where the Rivers Flow North, and Smoke Signals. Her television credits include Godless, Westworld, Longmire, and Outlander, among many others. Cantu was inducted into the Order of Canada in 2009 for her contributions to the growth and development of Aboriginal performing arts in Canada as a screen and stage actress and as a founding member of the Saskatchewan Native Theatre Company. She has played an active role in protesting the extension of the Keystone Pipeline, and in 2011 was arrested in front of the United States White House along with other protesters. Her numerous accolades include a Genie nomination, American Indian Film Festival Best Actress Award, the 2015 ACTRA, Association of Canadian Television and Radio Artists Award of Excellence. In 2017, she was honored with the Academy of Canadian Cinema and Television's Earl Grey Award for Lifetime Achievement. Tantu is currently shooting Stumptown on ABC. Sisters Rising is Tantu's first producer credit. And then we have Jada Gray Eagle. Jada is an Oglala Lakota artist born in Pine Ridge, South Dakota, and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She was born into a storytelling family, and her work sprawls over various mediums, including photography, film, beading, and writing. Jada is a 2018 recipient of the First Peoples Fund Artists and Business Fellowship, and she was awarded a fellowship from Native American Journalism Association in both 2017 and 19. She recently worked with Honor the Earth, a nonprofit organization founded to raise awareness and financial support for Indigenous environmental justice. There she produced media content around the Indigenous fight against Line 3, a pipeline threatening Minnesota's water supply. Her jewelry and beading work is represented by the Bee Yellowtail Collective, and her photography has been exhibited in more than a dozen group and solo shows, appearing in various public publications, including Vogue, Native Peoples Magazine, and TruthOut.org. Her work in all mediums focuses on environmental justice, decolonization, art activism, and mixing traditional Indigenous art with contemporary mediums. And then we have Sergeant Dawn White.
Hey, Francine, I think Dawn just recently updated her bio, and it was in first person. So maybe Dawn, would you be okay reading yours?
Yeah.
I just sent it to you in the chat window.
I'm not too keen on
I can read it for you, Dawn, if you want. I just wanted to make sure we had an old bio. I think then we wanted to use the one that you wrote, if that's okay. Sorry, Francine, for butting in.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. That's perfect. That's fine. Go ahead.
So from Dawn White, her own bio. Noah, I'm seeing Eagle woman of the Arikara Sanish Nation, born and raised on the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation. I grew up in the community of White Shields and graduated from White Shield High School. I went off to the US Army and traveled the world for 8 years as a medical specialist. I returned home and pursued my education at our local tribal college, Nueta Hidatsa Sanish Community College in Environmental Science and Science. I changed my career. Obviously, I am saying I, but this is Dawn's. I changed my career choice and in 2008 became a tribal law enforcement officer, and I am now the first female tribal drug agent of the MHA Division of Drug Enforcement. In 2014, I was recognized as a champion of public safety in Indian country by the Department of Justice. Congratulations, Dawn. And I'm continuing to fight the enemies of drugs and alcohol that plague our reservation. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Dawn. Sorry, Francine.
No, that's perfectly fine. I just would like to add that Willow has a thank you, or Dawn has a thank you that says to Willow and Brad for asking me to be part of their dream and making it a reality. So I think it's all a part of the circle. We are as Native people recognizing others, and the gratitude and also the honor I have for right now for being the moderator on this prestigious panel with powerful, outspoken women. It really, really moves me. So I watched the film. I'll start with just a question, and then if I see questions pop up, and feel free, panelists, if you see questions pop up as well. I don't know if you can or not in the QA or the chat, then feel free to kind of chime in. I'll do my best to pay attention to many aspects of this moderation. But yeah, I'm speechless pretty much about the film. I watched it and just thought right off, at the very beginning to all the way to the end, of just like, wow, it's powerful, it's astounding, it's poignant. The entire film as a whole story, and also the independent stories, the bravery of these women and you making the film and them telling their stories. Just congratulations for putting this topic forward profoundly and importantly. So I just wanted to say that's how it affected me. And so when I'd like to kind of get started on, the statistics that you put at the front of the film. I mean, that was the like, oh my gosh factor. So I also, as at the end of the film, I kind of saw a connection where, to prove those statistics, that 4 out of 5 Native women have experienced violence and 1 out of 3 will be raped, was when Patty Strongfish said there hasn't been a Native woman who she's met that hasn't been assaulted in some way. And that was just really like striking to me, and made me think and assume maybe that statistic is higher than what it's reported, because I'm assuming we get the statistic from women who have reported or who have spoken out on their assault. And I'm wondering, one, is that possible considering generational and historical assault on women? And also, can someone explain historical and generational trauma for Native people? Is that a good question?
You're gonna have to get bossy, Francine.
Okay, Tantu, I will start with you since you're the longest career working in here and your activism is decades.
Well, I feel like a bit of an imposter. I did very little on this film, other than to lend my support when it was called on, when it was asked for. But having been around the planet for as long as I have certainly run across the experience, and I considered it an important story. And when Willow asked me to be part of it, I was very glad to do so. And I also am a big fan of how tough our women are, how strong, how we just keep going. And we have been through so much attempted destruction on our being, on our communities, on our families, on our nations, everything. And yet we maintain, and yet we are standing here and doing this beautiful work. You know, everybody who stood up and said, yes, I will allow myself to be a part of the story that needs to be told. And Willow and Brad and Jada and all of you that did such a persistent job. It's so not easy making a film. And in this film is, it's not sexy. It's hard stuff, but it is very sexy because it's beautiful, powerful, and I was very glad to have been a part of it. You know, as far as statistics and numbers, all of that stuff, I'm not a scientist that way, but I have watched and experienced what this whole imbalance gives us. And thank you for doing this story and taking it forward for discussion.
Yeah, and for Dawn or Jada or Willow, or even Brad, I mean, this is a very serious subject. And it's really not just for people, but for our tribes and for we as Native women. And it's just, you know, gone so unprosecuted in so many cases, and where our hands are tied by tribal sovereignty laws and things like that. But how for you in making this film was it, or how was it also for you in doing your jobs, you know, as storytellers and also in the law enforcement, to cope with this story?
For
Willow?
me, oh,
Okay, Dawn? Yeah, Dawn, go ahead.
well, for me personally, just, you know, being a part of it in my mind was history making. Everybody talked about these things, but at a minimum. You know, it was always about, oh, sovereignty took over and other things going on in the world. But my whole thing was, this was history making when they decided to actually do this film on this subject. Because it was at the time, because when they filmed me, it was, you know, it was 6 years ago. And I wouldn't say it was really taboo, but it was before the Me Too movement. It was way before all these other, you know, Save the Children movements. It was before all of this. And I think when this started coming out and started generating the energy it did, it was like, as Native women, it was like, I'm not gonna be a victim anymore. You know, somebody's listening to me, somebody's hearing my story, someone is gonna fight for my justice. Maybe not my particular moment, but somewhere it needs to stop. And I've seen more in training on law enforcement side as to how you approach sexual assaults, domestic violence, how people, you know, there's more people now reporting than ever. And that's a big improvement that I've seen in my career, is from when the moment I started being in law enforcement up until now, is that I'm glad there's more reporting. And social media has been an outlet. A lot of people talk about TikTok, you know, but I see a lot of people, survivors on TikTok, telling their story, you know, naming their monster. And that's a part of your healing process, is to be able to just tell it, even if it's just once, to actually give it a name, put it out in the universe. And that's what this to me is all about, is allowing people to heal. And then from there, whatever happens, you know, continues. But as mothers and as a Native woman, I'm just really, you know, thankful that I was a part of this project, and it's history making to me.
Yeah, and for myself, you know, I think opening up the film, talking about numbers and statistics and everything, it's interesting to me because people want to talk about it in that way. They want to talk about it in terms of numbers. But for me, as a Native woman, it's not about numbers. It's about people that I know personally. It's about aunties. It's about cousins. It's about my mother. It's about my sisters. And so my draw to make this film was more personal. And it's strange to see and to realize that the violence that is so normalized in Indigenous country isn't the norm for everybody else. And I think Willow and I were talking about that last time whenever we had come on for a live, and we were in a good mood, right? Because we hadn't just watched the film. We were kind of like bubbly and giggly, and we were like, oh no, we're coming in and we're in a good mood, and people had just watched this film that's heartbreaking. And for myself, you know, this is just something I've heard all of my life. I've heard about women going missing. I've heard about our women, you know, experiencing incredible amounts of violence. And so what Donna is saying is like, absolutely, this is history making, you know, for us to speak out and to put it into this format, into a film, and put it in sense of numbers for everybody else. it's really incredible, and I'm really honored to be a part of this.
Willow and Brad, you want to contribute?
Yeah, I'm just so honored to be here with all of you. It's really it's a treat for us because we, you know, the in-person screenings are why one of the main reasons you make films is to feel the energy from the audience as they react. And the energy that Jada and we experienced at Big Sky was so powerful. Tantu was at the California premiere right before COVID started, and yeah, I've been blown away by the response to the film and how much people resonate with all the women in the film and are so our guiding light in shaping the story over the 6 years was we want the world to see these 6 women the way we see them, which is we feel that they're awe-inspiring and incredibly they're sort of like a guiding light for me in a way, their power and resilience, and to see audiences react in the way that I see the women in the film has been just really, really powerful, and working with all of you has been life-changing and amazing. And Dawn, it's just like so amazing to see you after I haven't seen Dawn in 5 years. And we were hoping we were like gonna screen the film, you know, with Dawn's community, and someday that will happen, maybe next year. But yeah, it's just so I'm just kind of speechless to see you all. Even though Zoom is so weird and disconnected, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, yeah. There was an interesting fact that I saw or heard in the film too, was somebody talking about that it's common for women to take responsibility in some way for the assault because someone has to be responsible. And it made me think, wow, you know, as humans, we're taught that at a young age, be responsible. And I think it was Lisa Brunner in the film who said that she counted coup against her mother's perpetrator by convincing her mother to file charges, and then he was eventually prosecuted with a felony and served time. And her proud moment of, you know, thinking about that process of when her mother called her and she was going to her mother's aid, and then, you know, telling her mother the reasons, and her mother picking the phone up 12 different times and hanging up and again, and but finally the 12th one she made the report, and then her Lisa's sense of pride and empowerment, really, in saying, I think I just counted coup against my enemy. Can someone explain what counting coup is, but also talk about maybe ways as victims that we can count coup against our perpetrators, whether in what you say in the film or in other ways?
How I was brought up, counting coup was basically, when it comes down to warfare, when it comes down to your enemy and stuff, it's easy to take a life. And to know that you can go into an enemy camp, you can go in and you can touch them, you know, because for anybody to basically come into your, you know, your self bubble, your home, and invade that, that was a major war coup for you. And, you know, and most of the time too, a lot of people don't talk about is, you know, there had to be a witness to that, because you couldn't just go up and, you know, what did you do, and then, you know, tell it. There had to always be a witness to it. And for me, a lot of women, just what I've heard in the past is, as women have become adults and they seen their monster, or they seen the person that, you know, assaulted them, when they became strong and they no longer was that little girl or that young kid, they were able to just sit there and go up to them and be like, you know, say what you did to me. Say it. I'm not that little girl anymore. You know, I'm not that young kid anymore. And touch them, you know, and strike them. And they talk about how some of these men have bowed their heads and actually cried about it. And then I look at those stories and I hear those stories, and in their mind, it was their own thing, their own justice. They didn't get the law justice that they should have rightfully got. They got their own justice by doing that. And, it broke that man's spirit. And every time they walked by them, every time families seen them, they had to put their head down in shame, to where they became the outcast. And I'm starting to see that movement more. So to me, that modern day counting coup, yeah, I am an advocate of it, to shame that person out and have that public shame, because that little girl, that little child, they had to carry that with them till their adulthood and process it and try to heal from it. So to me, that's modern day coup for me, an explanation of it.
Willow, Brad, Jada, did any of you, in the shaping of the story, I know when films start, you have the idea, you've got the subject, you maybe have a storyline. How did the influences of those whose stories you tell in the film, as well as your experiences, the knowledge, and Canton coming on, how did you all contribute to either the change, or did the story remain the same?
Nothing remained the same. I don't think there's any doc that starts out with the idea and then you end up with the product being just like the idea. I mean, I kind of think of it almost like we stepped into a raging river and got just carried downstream by all these incredible women who were like, your documentary is going to be about this and this and this and this. And we, I think that the idea we went into it with was very simplified and a bit naive, and what all these 6 women were telling us was so much more interesting and powerful and obviously embodied experience. And that's what all we had to do, was really listen carefully to what they were saying they wanted the film to be about, and what should we focus on, like the whole tribal sovereignty piece, restoring tribal jurisdiction as one of the sort of practical ways to address violence against Native women. That was really driven by what the women in the film were saying. And so we just listened and made kind of, crafting in the edit more what, I think at the end of every interview we asked, or we tried to remember to ask, what do you want the film to be about? What do you want it to say? What do you want it to include? And that was a brilliant idea on our part, because all these women's ideas were so much better than our ideas. So we really just stole their ideas and then made the film about what they wanted it to be. So
I think that's great. That's a sign of possible success.
Thanks, Tantu. And then Tantu was wonderful, and Jada, and there were a lot of Indigenous people behind the camp working in post-production in various capacities that offered thoughts and responses and reflections on the edit, which was also just totally necessary for the film to be shaped in a mature way. Because Brad and I are white, and we're doing anti-racist work on ourselves and in the world, but there's just certain things I'm not going to understand as a white person, and that having all the Native women's voices involved was obviously all Native women in the film, but then behind the camera too, in the editing process. Rizal Benali worked with Jennifer Ruff as editors on the film, and and Jada constantly was watching edits, and so that was just, man, film is just teamwork, and you have to have a good team, and we had an amazing team. I'm so grateful, you guys.
I wanted to add something kind of like off of what Dawn was saying, which is, we had 200 hours of footage that we ended up putting down to an hour so that it could be on broadcast, and we could have easily made an hour of just Dawn. Because we spent
we were tempted to do so.
We spent a long time riding around in Dawn's car, and it was like everything you said was brilliant, Dawn.
And I just have to say, also for a sound editor, you were a dream, Dawn. Dawn, you know how the sound waves in video editing looks like this, looks like a seismograph. People like me just it's like a big jumble of the lines. Dawn is so thoughtful in the way she says things that there's like silence between many of her words, so you can cut and edit really easily with Dawn's beautiful, beautiful voice. Oh my God, that was that was amazing editing, Dawn.
Yeah.
Really, like, she doesn't say dumb stuff. She actually thinks before she speaks. Something I could learn from.
And one of the things that we observed riding around in her car with her while she was on patrol was like how intimately she knew the community. And she would like see someone she knew stumbling out of the bar and like make sure that they were getting home and not going back for another drink, or just like talk to people that she encountered on the way as she was doing these patrols. And the thinking that the way the jurisdiction is now set up on the reservation is that if, you know, a non-native is involved, they're going to have to pull in a federal agent from off the reservation. It's just the wrong person to respond. Dawn is of the community. Dawn has pulled her mother over twice in a car.
For non-serious offenses.
For non-serious
Just
offenses.
got to make sure
Yeah.
Dolores will kick our butt.
Yes,
if
that's
we,
true.
yeah, we also filmed with Dawn's mother, and she deserves her own documentary as well.
Yes.
Very nice. Somebody, I have a question and I have a compliment I want to share that came in. So the compliment is Sister Rising is a powerful film with honesty and transparency from all of the women. What bravery to be in front of the camera to tell such personal trauma. The person writing this, my compliments are your film is very well produced and executed. Just watching the edit, you had me in the first 5 minutes. It's a great edit visually, along with the music and the natural sound editing. Cinematography was fantastic, lovely imagery, a powerful story with high production value. Thank you all for telling this story in front and behind the camera. And then a question is, can someone talk about a place for transformative justice, abolition, or community accountability as alternatives to policing and to trying to rely on the current criminal justice system?
We have tried in the past, you know, about as we modernize and as our children and as addictions have taken over in our communities and our reservation, it's harder to rely on tradition to keep our families and to keep our people in check. Nobody's listening to grandma no more. Nobody's listening to that auntie, that uncle anymore. Addiction has taken over and people are just doing what they want. And I can't speak for other reservations. I can only speak for mine. We are currently going through an opioid epidemic, and we have to rely on the federal system and the federal government and the AUSAs to charge out these people, because the addiction is so rampant here. And I've never seen, I've seen how meth has taken over, I've seen how heroin has taken over, but the fentanyl-based pills, the oxycodone, we knew, every law enforcement agency here knew it was coming. We knew it was coming here. We just didn't know when it was going to hit our communities, because we seen it come from the East Coast all the way across. And it would be nice to be able to rely on our traditional, you know, our Black mounts, our different societies that we have here, our traditions of listening to your grandparents, but the erosion of language, the erosion of our culture, of integrating other cultures here, and young kids, you know, will listen to that more than they'll listen to us. It's just difficult right now to be able to use those traditional ways of policing ourselves.
Jada, do you want to share anything from your experience?
I don't think I can follow up with that. That was too good, Don.
I was just thinking about something Sarah Deer spoke about, and I recommend to anyone interested in this subject. I'm always pushing Sarah Deer's book because she's just a brain on legs, and this book kind of changed our life and really helped us with this film as well. She talks about traditional indigenous ways of justice and including a Muskogee Creek Law, what she say it be law, which she covers in this book. And it was kind of like a brain-changing story to me when I heard her talking about this. Is essentially it's a pre-colonial, pre-contact law that the Muskogee Creek people had, where basically if a man violated a woman, she was put in the center of the decision-making process about what would happen, and how this man would be held accountable. And if I'm remembering correctly, basically she had the choice between corporal punishment or like fines, basically, like he would have to deliver firewood for however many winters, to her family, or so many horses or something, or be beaten with so many lashes, and another thing that Sarah Deer talked about was that
she just texted us.
She texted us, hi, Sarah. She should be on here. Can we bring her on? I don't know if we could do that on the back end. Oh my God, Simon. Okay.
Too many.
Too much. No, she doesn't want to be brought.
If someone emails her the link, Zoom link,
she doesn't want to.
I think she's probably sick of being in front of the camera at this point.
We're always trying to get her. Oh my gosh, now I've totally forgotten what I was saying. But essentially, to me, I was just like, what? As like Western colonial white girl thinking about this possibility where a woman is put in the center of a decision-making process about what's going to happen. That's just anathema. And Sarah Deer also talks about in this book how, rape law started with property law in England, and our rape law in the US is still based deeply with its roots in property law, because a woman was either the property of her father or her husband or brothers or whatever, some dude who can claim her as his property, essentially. And so a crime against her was really a crime against the guy who owns her, and that's really what our rape law is still based in. And you wonder, well, why don't women get real justice out of these systems that were never made to serve us? And I think that we do need to radically reimagine what justice looks like. It does seem clear that mass incarceration and that kind of punitive justice doesn't work very well. But I've also been very leery of restorative justice. I think Tantu wants to say something, just because because patriarchy is so deeply ingrained in all of our systems that it's hard to imagine a restorative justice model that really serves a survivor. So Tantu.
Yeah, I wanted to offer an ad that with this 19th Amendment event having just passed, and I was given the opportunity for 30 to 90 seconds and chose 90 seconds to offer this bit of our history that is not brought in to the suffragette movement. And that is, Letitia Mott had gone to Seneca Falls and was inspired by the Iroquois Society women, by the Haudenosaunee women. So the quick version of what I'm trying to say is that when the Euro men arrived, they did not bring their women. And the structure that was here is a matrilineal civilization structure, that it was the women who made the decisions. The women made the decisions about what happened with the land. That, that we're talking property, it's the women who decided what happened to land, what happened to the politics, what happened to the socioeconomics, the whole ball of wax came through the clan mothers. And that was not only in the Haudenosaunee society, that was also in the Cree society. And that makes me look at how many women's societies were buried by these Euro men coming here. And then what happened? Okay, blah, 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 blah. Women got the vote in 1920. Really? Not in my town. We didn't get the vote till 1960, 1962. What up, sister? You know? And so we have, this is how deep it is. It's right in our foundations and the difficulties that our own men have in many situations to accept the original formation, and it's women who have been given the gift of the greatest gift that there is in creation is new life, and all the mechanism connected with that responsibility. We have to land back where women are making these major decisions again, because that's the natural formation. That's the natural formation of life. And so we're constantly going to have these issues because we're not fitting right. I just wanted to add that.
Totally agree with all of that history. That is so absolutely true. And in the film, you talked about, well, actually, I think it was one of the characters, and I can't remember, I think it was Lisa, that talked about in the US government and referring to what 10-2 or expanding on what it is, government movements and laws that were enacted against Native people, termination, genocide, relocation, assimilation, and it's, you know, still being, the effects of it are still within us. So Jada, I'll give you a chance to talk. You talked about this being part of your personal commitment and journey as well to be a part of this film. Where do you see right now with, you know, the experience as a Native person in this historical, institutional, governmental, foundational oppression that's been applied to us, and how we are in surviving, why we're still here, what's going on in our communities, and, you know, relation to your own self as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think also something that we need to think about as well is also thinking about that a lot of these laws were enacted thinking that we weren't going to be here anymore, that they were enacted not even thinking about us, that we were going to live this long into the future. And I mean, I think it just speaks to our resiliency as to why, you know, we are still here. I mean, Native women who I meet all across the country are some of the most incredibly strong people that I know. And I mean, we've all been through so much, but yet we still hold on to our humor. And Native people are some of the funniest people you will ever meet in your entire lives. And I think that is where the root of our strength comes from, is just still being able to laugh, like still being able to find joy in everything. And that was actually a part of the film that we kind of fought to keep in, was some of that humor, and it was coming from Dawn about us, because, you know, it is a very sad story. You know, it's hard to digest, it's hard to take in, but we're still funny at the end of the day. We're still gonna find something to laugh about. So, yeah.
And historically too, even in the stereotyping and storytelling of film, and Canton, I'll refer to you with your history and your career as an actress and now moving into production, but the Sarah Deer referred to this in the film as well, as the historical sexualizing and stereotyping of Native women. And also the perception from that is that Native lands and Native women have been and are still perceived to a degree as open for both invasion and violation. But through film, tend to, you know, how have you seen the progression of that sexualizing, stereotyping of Native women? Is it improving at all, or are we still somewhere stuck in this?
We have a long ways to go yet. It's enraging and disheartening, but it certainly gives us something to do. In that there were two major documentaries that have been done in the recent past, in just the past couple of years. One of them was about images of women in Hollywood and the media, and another images and realities of sex and violence against women in our society, neither of these documentaries even mentioned us. There was not a whiff that we even existed. And these were films done by women of multicultures, every culture but ours. So what we are living through, what we are dealing with is so deep. We really need to have all hands on deck. And that's another one of the reasons why I think this film was so important, because it's getting a story out there. It's getting a voice out there. And I mean, racism is bad enough. Then you got sexism on top of it. And then you got this brainwashing for generations and generations that our culture is dead. Whereas in fact, our culture is connected with the origins of existence. That's where our root is the origins of existence. We come through spirit to get here, and we go through spirit to get out of here. And that's where we have been. That's where our meat and potatoes and our air and our fire and our life has been. It's not because of the great kindness and goodness of the government and the people who created it that we still exist. It's from the life force that we still exist. And we will maintain. We will be doing. That's something that's on my list of things to do, is to get involved in that documentary that does talk about it. How come we weren't in that? You know, these are advanced brains and hearts that did this documentary. And how did they miss that we still exist? How did they miss that? You know, so it's important, and it's fascinating how powerful brainwashing is, and colonialism, and that doctrine of discovery, really convincing people, oh yeah, I'm it, you know? Okay.
That bravo, thank you, Tentu. The powerful force of a Native woman speaking out about rights, justice, empowerment, strength, courage, everything. Everybody just heard that firsthand from Tentu. And one thing I think we're really bad at in this country, and around the world, and in colonialism, imperialism, all the way back, is labeling. And, you know, hearing Tentu and those powerful words, but then I can also, especially in the United States right now with us being so polarized, hearing people saying, you know, well, that's radical. You know, you're being radical, or we're radicalists when we're just trying to fight for what is right and just, and doing it by getting the truth out. I'd like everyone to give a response. How do we change either that lateral address, speak to, or get that truth out with, you know, those that accuse us of being radical?
I'm looking at Dawn because you said it's so great.
Yeah, I could quote back Dawn from our documentary, like word for word, but she would do a better job.
You are always going to be called radical when you tell the truth. And the truth is simple. You don't have to think about it, and you can just say it. But every Indigenous community, individual, they were very truthful. And I look back and I think, like, where did that change? You know, when did they become silent? Because even, you know, when I think back and I was told about ceremonies and stuff, and how a person would get up and they would say something, but if there was someone in the crowd that said, no, you know, they were dealt with immediately. And in the position that I do, you know, truth comes out as oh, you're being a snitch, you know, you're being a cop caller, you're being those are the labels that are associated with the truth now.
Aaron.
And it's not, you know, when freedoms are on the line, when you're looking at a felony or tribal charge, you know, the truth is just simple. You did it, okay, admit it, accountability. But we lack that in this world a lot, is accountability and self-accountability. And we want to deny that. And it's become so easy for all of us to not say the simple truth and say, okay, yeah, I did that, you know, and I accept what my punishment is going to be. And for me, you know, I can tell you this, that the first time I ever testified in federal court, there are these other elder or older law enforcement guys, and we call them blue coats, and they're kind of like a bailiff type of person in the federal court system. And I always remember one was like, you know, hey, Officer White, how many times have you done this? And I looked at him and I was like, my first time. And I didn't know, I was just a young cop. I was like maybe a cop for maybe only a year. And he goes, really? Gee, everybody's always nervous when they go up there. And I said, how come you have to be nervous to tell the truth? I never understood that, I guess. It never dawned on me to think that people are nervous to tell the truth. And, but a lot of that is your upbringing. A lot of that is who you surrounded yourself with and what you perceived as the truth. So if ones are to call me radical because I told the truth, you know, I'll take that hit. But then I turn around and say to them, you know, when are you going to be true to yourself? When are you going to take accountability for what you did? And that it's hard to deal with for my job in regards to the word truth. It really is, because I have to figure out and play this game who's telling the truth. Like I always tell everybody, there's your version, there's their version, and then there's the truth. And sometimes, yes, is it who's the better storyteller? Sometimes.
Thank you, Dawn. Wow. Willow or Jada, would you like to add to that, please?
One of the things that I think Dawn's words from our film Radical really made me feel about radical in a new way. And one of the things that I found interesting about it is that the Latin root of radical actually means pertaining or getting back to the roots. And I've really started to try to think of radical this way, as not being something that's new or not being something that's different
or crazy,
but
there.
Something that's actually rooted in truth, rooted in the way things are, rooted in the way things should be. And I mean, radical, it's like hysteria. It's like any of the words that the patriarchy uses to just control and suppress folks.
And dismiss.
Yeah. And I think to a patriarchal society that's trying hard to hold on to this power that they have, it can be really threatening to talk about the way things were or the way things should be. So thanks to Dawn and a bunch of other folks, I'm really proud to be radical. And I think we should all be radical.
Yeah, and dovetailing on that a little bit, I feel like as I become more radical, the more informed and educated I am. So that just means I'm stripping away ignorance, and that if that makes me radical, that's a good thing. But I do think that I'm becoming more and more aware that white America is able to sort of cocoon itself in this comforting idea that there is no racism, or that it's not as bad as these crazy people of color are screaming about. You know, they must, I don't know what their deal is, but if you never really experience racism, it is kind of hard to believe when you first start hearing firsthand accounts, especially like growing up. I grew up in largely white areas, so you don't even have the chance to hear what people are experiencing. And I think that finally white America is starting to shed that like warm, cozy cocoon of ignorance and realizing like, holy crap, this is what other people are experiencing. This is a whole different America. There are many different Americas that people are experiencing. And I think documentaries are really important for that. And, all media, all storytelling, people's social media, listening to people's stories and hearing firsthand. And the other thing I was thinking about was there's this beautiful restorative justice phrase, hurt people. And I do think that that's another root that I think about. And I really have a hard time dredging up any kind of compassion for perpetrators, but I do feel like, especially sexual predators, but I do think that a lot of perpetrators have profound trauma that they've experienced, and hurt people do hurt people. And even, okay, now this is a little bit radical and maybe kind of off topic, but I do think when I think about European settlers coming to the US, what happened in Europe, before they even came over here? There was those witch hunts. It was a genocide of women across Europe, and Farah Tanis is this amazing Black woman who started Black Women's Blueprint. And I heard her speak once about how white people, especially American white people, need to root out our own like deep generational trauma from way back. Like when we killed off most of the women, basically any woman who spoke out in Europe, massacred. And I think that white Americans are extremely hurt, and they perpetuate hurt on other people. And that's a white problem that white people need to address. And I know there are problems in every community, but since white people sort of dominate the power in this country, I think that's where it really needs to start also. That's enough for me.
Yeah, thank you. We're almost come to the end of time. I wanted to read 2 more compliments that came in, and then one last wrap-up question from everybody. So one commenter said, thank you again. I am so appreciative of the film and this conversation. Someone else said, thanks, Tentu, for a very profound contribution. You show us real women again and again and speak with directness and passion today. And so my last question would be, what would you like for this film to do? What is your hope that this film can make change for? We'll just start with Willow. Willow and Brad.
You go, Buns.
On a very personal level, I am so honored to be in this virtual room with Tantu, Jada, and Dawn. So on a very personal level, thank you. It is amazing.
That's not the question.
I know. So the question is, I just didn't know if I'd get an opportunity. The question is, the answer is, I think, most non-native folks who have seen our audience and that we've been able to, or our film that we've been able to engage with, their response is rage. And they're enraged because of an injustice that they were unaware of, and they really want to do something about it. And so I think one of the hopes of my film, one of my hopes of our film is to somehow connect it more directly to movements, to have it be used by movements to be a tool to actually make action. I'm very proud of the film, mostly because of the women who are in it, and I'm very proud of their stories and them bringing it forward. But I would also love to see it, help get VAWA reauthorized, or help make actual change in the world legislatively as well, I guess.
Yeah, and everyone leaving Sisters Rising screenings is going to be able to name more Native women than just Sacagawea and Pocahontas. Like, how Sarah Deer says in the film, like, ask an average American to name a Native woman. All they can say is Sacagawea and Pocahontas. Well, after Sisters Rising, they can name Dawn White, they can name Tantu Cardinal, Jada Gray Eagle, Lisa Bruner, Sarah Deer, et cetera, et cetera. So that's like a very achievable goal, I think.
Tantu?
I just wish it a very happy, healthy life of the little warrior film that goes out and is among people that really need to hear the story, to get emboldened by it, or get informed by it, or any of those magic little human things that a nice film will do. And the sacrifices that were made by the people that were involved, that share their story, and the sacrifices involved in bringing it all together are honored in that way of people seeing it.
Thank you. Jada?
More Indigenous women storytellers having the space to tell our stories.
Great one.
Like, look at Tantu's scarf behind her. That's what we want.
Excellent. And Dawn?
What I want, and what I want any person, it doesn't matter who it is that views this documentary, is one, I want you to walk away to say, you know what, this is wrong. This is wrong what is being done to our Indigenous women or any victim. And that, what can I do? What little part can I do in my life, in everyday life from this day forward to help this situation? Is it by telling, somebody, hey, did you see that documentary? Do you know the one that I'm talking about? Because that goes a long way. And another part of it is with all the women involved, with all the production involved and everything, is that it doesn't just stop here. This energy needs to keep going and continue, because to me, when this starts, the momentum of it, it's not going to be able to be stopped. And that's what we want, is at that point, and it's not, you can call it anger, you can call it rage, you can call it, whatever you want. But to me, it's that energy to sit there and say to the people in Washington, D.C., you need to do something, and you need to do something now. Because if you don't, then you are going to leave, and we will get somebody new that's going to make a change. And that change just starts with one person. One person needs to sit there and say, hey, I'm going to be that change today. That's what I want coming away from this, because this isn't decades. This is thousands of years, and thousands of women's stories and victim stories that need to come out. And they just need that one victory. And that's what I want walking away from this film.
Thank you. So I got, share the story, tell others, maybe write your senators, congressmen about the issue. Look at people within your communities to increase awareness, and reach out a hand to somebody who may be suffering as well. So thank you all so very, very much. Powerful women, powerful story, and powerful voices you all have. Congratulations, and good luck on your future work, and keep up the hard work. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Francine. Thank you, Vision Maker, so much.
Great to see you.
You too.
Okay, bye everybody.